what to do if your land fails a percolation test. Now that's a big problem if that happens to you. So as a matter of fact, if you want to look to buy a piece of land, you probably one of the most important questions that you have is, well, what if I can't put a septic system on there because it fails the percolation test? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what to do about that and what solutions you have. Okay, so a percolation test is obviously a test where you test to see if you can put a septic system on your land. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly the kinds of percolation tests that are done, what happens if you pass it, what factors influence whether or not you actually can put a traditional septic system in there, and if you don't pass it, what are your alternatives? At the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to do if your land fails a percolation test, which it hopefully won't. Okay, let's go into it. So the first question to ask is, what even is a perc test? Well, first of all, a perc test is a test that measures the water absorption of the land. Now, why would you want to test that? Well, very simply, because in some circumstances, the land that you have, that you want to perhaps build a house on there, is not connected to the city water and the city sewer. So typically that is if you're either in a more rural area and where there's basically no city water and city sewer, you have to get water from a well. And well, if you go do your business and have dirty water from the shower and from the toilets and from everywhere, then that needs to go somewhere to it. It can't just be spilled out into the backyard. So typically what you need to put in place is a septic tank, and from the septic tank what happens is there's certain so-called leach lines that go out into the land, and from there it's very slowly the water goes into the dirty water goes into the ground, and as it filters through all the different layers of sediment, basically the ground naturally cleans it up and it ends up in the groundwater as clean water. Now it sounds a little bit disgusting, but think about it. Is really the water disgusting when you have a farm and there's a bunch of cows out there? They pee and poop on the ground all day long, right? It smells a little bad on the surface, but once that actually goes into the groundwater, it's no longer an issue. So the other place, so typically again more in rural properties, this is where this is happening, but then also sometimes in more exclusive neighborhoods, let's say hillside properties and things like that. As a matter of fact, the house I live in, it's a 7,000 square foot home on an acre property. We have a septic tank because we are set back so far from the main street where there is city water and city sewer. So we have city water, but apparently for the people that built that house before we bought it when it was like 10 years old already, it was too expensive to build an extra connection line all the way to the house. So instead they chose to put a septic tank on there. Or also perhaps in neighborhoods that are older where the houses were built before the city put in city water and sewer everywhere, you still find also septic tanks. Now again, let's go back to the percolation test though. So you have a piece of land, you want to get potentially a house on there, you're nowhere close to the city water and city sewer, so really your only option is a septic tank. And in order to actually make sure that you can install one, you need to do a perc test. Now the perc test, again, the way it happens is somebody comes out, a company comes out, you pick an engineering company, and they come out with a little backhoe and they dig a bunch of holes into the land, and then they pour a bunch of water on it, and then they measure how fast that water goes into the surface. Now they don't do that in one spot, only in one spot. They do that in probably like 10-15 spots around the lot, because underneath the surface the consistency of the earth can actually be very different in different parts of your lot. And now the water therefore needs to flow down in a certain range, and if it goes down in that certain range, if it absorbs in a certain speed, then you're approved, you're ready to go, you can get your permit and you can get your septic tank in there. Now if it goes either too slow or too fast, that's when it becomes a problem. Now why would it become a problem in that case? Well, very simply, if it's too slow, think about it. All your dirty water from the kitchen, from the dishwasher and so on, and that's not that much of a problem, but then really from your toilets, you know what I'm talking about, goes through into the septic tank, and from there to the leach field, it goes out basically into the soil underneath your garden. And now you're playing with the kids there, and if it goes down too slow, in other words, if you're pushing in more water then the ground can actually absorb over time that dirty water, that poop and pee water in essence, goes up to the surface and you got a muddy, smelly mess on the surface. You wouldn't want that. It's not good, it's not fun, and more than anything, it's not hygienic. It can be making you sick, and it can make your kids sick, and it can make the animals sick, and it becomes just a hazard, an environmental hazard. Obviously, that doesn't work. At the same time, if it's too fast, it actually goes too fast to the layers of sediment, and then by the time it hits the groundwater, it could still be contaminated, and therefore, again, it could become now a groundwater contamination issue. The absorption rate needs to be within a certain rate. Now, what would make a piece of land not pass the thing? How is the earth need to be, or what kind of the circumstances of the land that would actually cause it to absorb too fast or too slow? Well, one of the situations that can occur is that underneath the surface, it all looks fine on the ground. There's like a layer of earth and so on, but underneath it, it could sometimes be all rock. Now, I mean solid granite. I've been in places where you could not build anymore, where nowadays you're not allowed to build anymore because the entire area underneath those lots is like one solid, basically, piece of stone. Well, stone doesn't absorb water, so as a result, the water doesn't go through. As a result, you can't really build there. The other way is that one of the properties on too steep of a hill, because what happens if you put water on a hill? It just flows downwards. So then it all accumulates on the bottom, which again, you don't want that. So the slope of the lot can't be more than just a normal generic slope. So if you want a hillside property, you might have a problem with the septic system. The third kind of property that gives you a problem is more like in areas close to the coast, wetlands. Obviously in a wetland or in places like Florida where the groundwater is like 5 feet underground, doing septic tanks is much more difficult and provides much more challenge. So what happens if your lot does not pass a Perc test? Can you not build on it? Well, that's probably one of the most misunderstood factors in real estate. Most people think, oh, it didn't pass the percolation test, so I cannot build. And this is actually not true. Because nowadays with technology, there's different kind of septic systems that actually allow you to still build on it. So for example, if the absorption rate is too fast, or if there's not enough space between the ground and the groundwater, then what you can actually do in some cases, they're so-called sand filtered septic systems that you can put in. So what they basically do, they dig out some earth, they put in specific sand that helps slow down or accelerate the process, and as a result, you can still put a special septic system on there that perhaps pre-cleans the waters first, that has more chemicals in it, that actually removes it and cleans the water up first before it goes in there, so that less toxic water goes into the ground. And also by adding like sand to it, it has a couple of other benefits to it. Or another one might be a hydraulic septic system. And then last but not least, there's also the droilet. Now the droilet is basically one of a high technology kind of contained septic systems in a way, toilet system that does not require a septic system at all. Now you can look into droilet, it's a trademark, it's a product, you can look into those, check out the links in the description and so on. For the droilet, for example, you don't even need a Perc test. You don't need constant water. You don't need a drain field. You don't need some things because it's actually a self-contained system. Instead, you probably have to have somebody come and pump it out every once in a while. But again, that doesn't happen weekly. It happens more every few months or so. What they all, though, have in common is that the issue is that a normal septic system costs perhaps $10,000. Perhaps in some cases, depending on the size, you can even get it installed for less than that. The problem with all of this hydraulic, with the sand filtered, and any of these other systems is that they're much, much more expensive. And that's why a lot of people say, oh my God, my land didn't pass the Perc test, it is now not buildable. But nothing could be further from the truth, because you can put a septic system in there, you can put a hydraulic one in there, or you can put a sand filter in there, or you can put the droilet in there. It just requires you to pay a little bit more. So this becomes an issue if you buy a piece of land for $5,000 and you want to put a $30,000 mobile home on there, because a hydraulic or sand filtered water system could cost $30,000 to $50,000. And in that case, the financial feasibility of building is gone. But never say that you can't build on a land just because it did not pass the Perc test. You can build. It just might be too expensive to actually put it all together. But at the same time, if you buy a $250,000 lot in a custom home community that needs a septic system and it doesn't pass the percolation test, and you want to put up $1 million home on there, what's an extra $30,000 to $50,000 for a septic system that allows you to build the home of your dreams on there? So it's all relative. It all is a matter of just how much were you planning to build for the house and what percentage is now the toilet system essentially going to contribute to the purchase cost. If it passes the percolation test, great, then you're out 10 grand. If it doesn't pass it, it becomes a higher dollar item. And at that point, you need to decide whether or not you want to do that for that property. Here's the thing, if you're looking to get properties like that, if you're looking for pieces of land to build on and have percolation tests done in the process, of course, then I have a little surprise for you. We have a contract that we have used all around our business, all around the United States, to get deals under contract for 10 to 45 cents on the dollar, most of which the percolation test passed. Some of them it didn't pass, and we still were able to sell these properties. So if you're interested in getting your hands on that contract that we spent thousands of dollars with our attorneys on, then simply go to freelandcontract.com and download it right now.